How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here, and we're back at it breaking down the latest of Mets land. Another jam-packed video, and this comes after I already dropped a video for you guys. That happened earlier today, right around 10 a.m. Eastern, because the Mets are in active trade negotiation there with the Miami Marlins. We talked about Sandy and much more, what I'm hearing throughout the industry right now. We also broke down the Astros having a level of interest at least one of the Mets' young infielders, how a potential trade could be had there, as well as the current status with the Mets and the White Sox for one Luis Robert and the Mark Vientos rumblings. Check out that video after you guys have watched this one and get set for our post-game show later on tonight as well there, breaking down win, lose, or draw between the Mets there in Petco Park against the San Diego Padres. But in this video right here, right now, what do we have to get into? We have to break down how the Mets are actively in the market for, yeah, you guessed it, I'm saying that sarcastically, and Brandon Lowe, all-star second baseman there from the Tampa Bay Rays. I know you did not have that on your bingo card today, and if you did, I'm honestly impressed, because Brandon Lowe is a player that has not at all been connected to the Mets up until now, and the great reason for that is he's a second baseman. So why would the Mets be in the market for Brandon Lowe? Well, we're going to break down all those details here in just the next couple minutes, everybody. What there's to like about Brandon Lowe, how a potential trade can happen here versus maybe why it won't. What are the clear obstacles, the barriers, if you will, and the Mets' way from getting this type of deal done? What would Lowe's immediate impact be? Why it would be such a huge weapon to add into this Mets lineup immediately. From there, we also have to get into the Mets, as we know, have been shopping Mark Vientos, but it's been reaffirmed there through the latest reporting of SNY, and there's a great belief now that Vientos is now more up for grabs than any other Mets infielder potentially. So we're going to expand as to why exactly that is, where Mark could go if he's traded, and our thoughts as Mets fans. From there, we also have to get into what Will Salmon stated there that we saw through the grapevine report over the past 24 hours, that yes, folks, the Mets have been in the market for flamethrowing right-hander from the San Francisco Giants, so the Mets just faced one Camilo Doval. We are going to get into not only Doval, as well as all these other pieces in this one, the potential trade, lack thereof, what it may take to land these players, and a whole lot more. So sit back, relax, and get yourself ready for the ride, which is our latest Metropolitan Breakdown, everybody. But please make sure to let me know your initial reactions, thoughts, and analysis in the comments down below to the following topics that we're about to get into. Hit that like and subscribe on your way in, as it's greatly appreciated. And shout out, as always, to our amazing sponsors here at SeatGeek that have you covered for all of your ticketing needs. Simply head over to SeatGeek and utilize our promo code WARDY10. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase, everybody. Thank you kindly for doing exactly that, as well as hearing from a very excited Wardy with a great event that we have upcoming just a couple days away this Friday at Citi Field against these Giants. Listen up, everybody. It's Wardy here, and as you can see, we are at gorgeous Citi Field, and folks, you can get the ultimate, the prime experience with your guy Wardy at our first ever official Wardy Day. August 1st, Mets San Francisco Giants there for the evening game. The day after the MLB trade deadline, you, your friends, your loved ones, select Mets fans will get the ultimate experience with your guy Wardy. Not only are we going to hang out at the ball game together, but folks, look at this seating. We're going to be live here in the left field lounge. You guys will be able to chop it up with your guy Wardy. We're going to be debating as to who's the best pitcher of the rotation outside of Kodai Senga. We're going to be talking about who's the next best prospect to get called up. How do we feel about the trade deadline acquisitions? And guys, as you get back up here then, we are going to be giving you a $18 drink voucher, and with that drink voucher, you guys are going to be able to hit up the bars that we have right outside of here. So easy, so accessible. Again, prime seating, a truly fantastic experience. Our first ever Wardy Day here at Citi Field, guys, where you will get a chance to hang out with your guy Wardy. And the best part too, not only is it this amazing lounge in left field that you guys will hang out with me, but we're going to be on the field, pre-game access there for a group photo op. So I hope to see you, all you amazing Mets fans there. Click the link if you guys haven't already there to check out our available tickets, and let's go Mets. And not only are we going to be sitting here throughout the course of the ball game, you guys can also check out these seats that we have access to all here in the bar area here, right at the Milagro, where you guys can utilize your $18 drink voucher. Again, this is going to be at Wardy Day, August 1st, 2025. Oh wait, yeah, almost forgot. It's also fireworks night. Bang! Hope to see you guys there. Check out our Wardy Day tickets that are still available, everybody. And at the time of recording this video, I believe we have right around 8, if not less. So again, guys, if you want your last chance to get Wardy Day tickets from now up until the deadline, which is obviously August 1st there, not the trade deadline, but the deadline to, in fact, head over there to Wardy Day. Check them out. Pinned down below in the description in the comments. Thank you guys kindly for that. Now let's hop right into this and let's begin this discussion here, having everything to do with a topic that's completely miscellaneous from the others that I had to begin this conversation, but there's good reason for this, because we've broken down this player on the platform as a potential trade fit, a very appealing fit, but obviously would come at a price. Well, now it appears that this man is off the board. What happened, everybody? Emanuel Clase stupidity is what happened. Breaking news per Jeff Passan of ESPN. Cleveland Guardians closer Emanuel Clase has been placed on a non-disciplinary paid leave as part of MLB's sports betting investigation, sources tell ESPN. Clase is the second Guardians pitcher there on leave now, as he's tied to what's been going on in the investigation, joining right-hander Luis Ortiz. So, color me shocked. When you normalize sports betting, it's one thing for a guy like myself to talk about it, but it's another when you have the actual sport itself constantly promoting it. Naturally, you're going to see more and more players get involved one way or another. These things are inevitably going to be happening. But what's very unfortunate here, in the case of anyone that wanted Emanuel Clase, the idea of Emanuel Clase being traded at this year's deadline feels very slim now, as who knows when this man is even going to be back towing the rubber for this Cleveland Guardians team. So while that investigation is ongoing, a flamethrowing, fantastic right-hand reliever is now pretty much officially off the board for any team looking to acquire said reliever. So now that we move away from Emanuel Clase, let's get into here the key reporting that dropped earlier today that, again, really jaw-dropped me because I wasn't expecting to see this. And bam, everybody, from Joel Sherman there of the New York Post, and his latest article has a paywall, but don't worry, I'm going to spill the beans and tell you guys what you need to know. But if you want to check out that piece, it'll be linked down below in the description for each and every one of you. And he stated the Mets have shown interest in second baseman Brandon Lowe from the Rays there for a potential trade. And Brandon Lowe this season has been absolutely nails, guys. In case you guys have been living under a rock, let me enlighten you. Brandon Lowe has been one of the better lefty bats that we've seen out of the American League so far this season, i.e. the numbers that you guys see down below. But let's get into why exactly would the Mets even consider a trade like this. And let's get the elephant out of the room. The Mets would be doing this, and this is something that I've told you guys, especially when Jesse Winker went right back on the injured list. I told you guys, if Jesse misses more extended time, that there is a role that they may actually try to replace him of a lefty type bat there, getting more DH time than anything else. And Brandon Lowe, while he plays second base, is not a good second baseman. He's horrendous defensively. But what is he very good at? Being a power slugging second baseman for the middle of the infield or the DH position. And as Joel broke down in his latest article, this would come at the cost of pretty much being a Jesse Winker replacement for this Mets team. With no immediate timetable for Jesse to return, obviously. Same thing with Jose Siri. The Mets need to act fast and be diligent and making sure that they don't sit on their hands and hope that these guys come back and make a difference when who knows when they're going to return, one, and secondly, what kind of impact they're going to have as well. And as much as I love Jesse, there's still a world where he would be on this team, but he would have a more limited role than he probably would have ever had. And that's the nature of the beast when you've been injured for the vast majority of the season, because the one play that you try to make in the one game that you're in the outfield, you go ahead and have yourself a grade 2 oblique strain, you're out 2 months. Now you have an inflamed back, which is not helping either. So when things get bad, they have certainly gotten worse for Jesse Winker, unfortunately, but this now opens the door and opens the floodgates for the Mets to consider other opportunities that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have done a couple months ago if someone like Winker was healthy. Not only this, but paired with the Mets' clear willingness to trade away one of their abundance of infielders, and Acuna, Beatty, Mauricio, and Vientos, a Brandon Lowe trade isn't nearly as far out of the realm of possibility as to what you maybe thought a couple months ago. And as you guys see from the stat line down below, Lowe has been nothing short of absolutely nails that we have seen for this Tampa Bay Rays team. And the Rays obviously have been having success this year, but there's one thing we know about the Tampa Bay Rays is that even in years that they find themselves being successful, even in years where they really have everything working, they may still find themselves as, at minimum, soft sellers there at the trade deadline. And in the case of Brandon Lowe, there is now a greater reality that he's not only going to be traded, but the Mets may find themselves as the top suitor for him, and here's why. In 86 games this season, for the All-Star, mind you, because he represented the Rays out of the American League this year at the game, a 350 play appearance, we're looking at 55 runs scored, 19 home runs already, 50 RBIs, 3 stolen bags, a 269 batting average, a 320 on base, and a 480 slug, which you love to see right there. So you got 4, 5, 6, 7. We're looking at right around an 800 OPS, a 1.3 WAR, and 120 on the WRC plus, meaning he's 20% better than the average batter in baseball. So I like that, and you probably like that as well. What we don't like is Brandon Lowe's lack of solid defense there at second base. But why is that not a problem? The Mets have an abundance of guys to consider at second base. Agrees as well, everybody. The Mets have their pickings to choose from when we evaluate their options there for second base. And not only will you guys see there Mr. Brandon Lowe hitting bombs galore beside me, but as you guys can also see here in the Baseball Savant numbers, there's a lot to like about Brandon Lowe so far this season. And we're looking at a Mr. Lowe right now that's in the 74th percentile in XWOBA. He's in 68th in expected batting average. He's in 83rd in expected slugging, 87th in average exit velocity, 81st in barrel percentage, 71st there in hard hit percentage, 83rd in sweet spot percentage, 69th in bat speed, squared up percentage there at 30, chase percentage there at 42nd, whip percentage at 7th, K percentage at 24th, and walk percentage there at 31st. So, yeah, listen, he's swinging and missing at a good rate. He's not going to get a crazy amount of walks. This is a big bopper of a bat there, mainly commanding second base and the DH position. But Lowe's been consistent. This is a guy that can give you easily 20-plus home runs every single year. And Brandon, who's on a long but very team-friendly contract of 7 years, but only $33.5 million total, and does have a 2026 club option, means the Mets would have full control in their say in their future of Brandon Lowe should they acquire him. So now let's get into why would this trade at all make sense from the Tampa Bay Rays point of view. And the reason why it would make sense is, one, the Rays are never privy to shedding payroll, even with them having a new ownership change. As we get in the offseason, they may find themselves spending a decent amount, but Lowe's been in trade rumors for multiple years, and it goes in direct to him because he is obviously a clear trade candidate for them. And if you're the Tampa Bay Rays, especially with a guy with multiple years of control, a true all-star type second baseman, you're going to want a good haul. And what you're going to want is not only a consideration of top prospects in the top 10 range, but you're also going to probably at least want to consider one of those abundance of infielders that the Mets have. This is where, again, Vientos, Acuna, Beatty, and Mauricio all come to mind to varying degrees. And if you're the Mets here, what would make most sense for you if you're going to trade Brandon Lowe? Out of all the infielders that the Mets could keep, which one is most feasible to stay? And right away, the two guys that I think make most sense for the Mets to keep and stay are Brett Beatty and Ronnie Mauricio. Why, you might ask? It's because they can both play multiple infield positions, and they can both handle things, I think, fairly well between third base and second base, with Jeff getting second base reps, obviously, from time to time outside of center field, and so allowing Lowe to be more of your pretty much standard everyday DH, as well as getting second base reps based on certain matchups for maybe when you want Marte at the DH position. And the reason why I'm not talking about Vientos here is because I think that this would go in direct hand with the Mets potentially trading away a guy like Mark Vientos. Not that it's a guarantee to happen should you land Lowe, but if you mean to tell me that you're landing a not proficient defender for second base, but a guy who's a clear bat first player, and he profiles best at DH, why would you keep Mark Vientos on this team when you're limiting his opportunity even more? It just makes little sense. So in a world where Mark Vientos is especially parted with, or at least the Mets are heavily pondering at the time of talking right now, that goes in direct hand why Brandon Lowe makes endless sense as that second base / DH option, depending on when Jesse Winker returns, his health status, certain matchups. The Mets can get very creative here. But what they do get is a bat that would be a difference maker. This is not a Luis Robert in the sense that we're hoping that we're shooting for the stars that he could be somewhat of what he was in 2023 versus the floor that he's been this season, which has been well below league average as a batter. Brandon Lowe is a guy that can come in and be a force and help single-handedly win you ball games, the way that Ronnie Mauricio did this past night with his tremendous 4-for-4 game there at Oracle Park against those Giants. A lot to love about Ronnie, but there's a whole lot more to love right now about Brandon Lowe. And in a win-now stage, guys, having a slugging second baseman like this would take this lab to another level. You add another lethal 30 potential home run bat there into the slab with Brandon Nimmo, with Francisco Lindor, with Juan Soto, with Pete Alonso. Pretty much on the power front, what the Mets would be getting in Brandon Lowe is what they were hoping to be getting on the consistent basis in Mark Vientos. Vientos, we were hoping, would stay healthy and be consistent and give us another 25 to 35 home run season. Now we'll be lucky if Mark Vientos could hit 15 home runs this year, right? And even then, that's wishful thinking at the time with the very limited home runs he's had so far this year between inconsistencies and injuries. So when looking to add certainty, if you're trying to make a difference, if the Mets are really trying to go out and change their ways of runners in scoring position, as well as just clutching up and having a deep lineup, look no further than the tremendous lefty bat in Brandon Lowe. The only thing about Brandon Lowe is by bringing another quality lefty batter, the Mets lineup that has been known for years as a righty-dominant lineup quickly becomes very lefty-heavy between not only what you have there in Nimmo, Lindor, obviously, Lindor is batting more lefty than righty as a switch hitter. Same thing with Mauricio. You add in all the pieces that the Mets have of guys batting from the left side, including McNeil and Lowe, it would be cooking against these right-handers. And against lefties, it depends on who you talk to, right? Lowe has obviously been up and down when it comes to that production in that regard, but he's had a very consistent season that we have seen at this point. And you love to see it for a guy who's been consistently slugging. 2 years ago, 440. Last year, 473. This year, 480, right for a smack dab 800 OPS. This is the exact kind of batter that moves the needle and makes this Mets lineup go from being good. The Mets are currently ranked 6th in overall offense per Fangraphs. This can make the Mets a top 4 offense, if not top 3 in Major League Baseball. This is that kind of needle mover. This is a key difference maker, everybody. So out of all players that the Mets could land at this year's deadline bat-wise, we all know Eugenio Suarez is wishful thinking because he's more of a DH profile, and he makes even less sense until the Mets actually trade someone like Vientos should they do it. But Lowe does make a level of sense here, and he makes sense for all the reasons that I just told you, especially for a Mets team in a win-now stage. And let's also not forget that David Stearns knows a thing or two about handling the Rays and making trades happen. As a matter of fact, David Stearns has made more moves with the Tampa Bay Rays organization than any other team since officially becoming president of baseball operations for the Mets a year and a half ago. So that's further proof that not only are these trade negotiations actively happening, but no one should be shocked if the Mets actually make a trade happen for Brandon Lowe. And I would say if you're going to trade for Brandon Lowe, why stop there? If the Rays are willing to part ways with one of their higher leverage arms in their bullpen, whether it's a Pete Fairbanks who's been having, an up-down season. Biggest concern with Fairbanks is that he gets that bizarre thing where his fingers kind of go numb when it gets cold out. Maybe not the kind of guy that you want to be pitching deep into October and potentially November there if things really go right for this Mets team at Citi Field. But a guy like Garrett Clevenger, who I absolutely love as a lefty option that I think the more the merrier. Between himself, Gregory Soto, and Brooks Raley, you can never have enough southpaws in that bullpen of quality. Those are just immediate guys that come to mind, but there are plenty others I'm sure the Rays are pondering to consider trade away. But Brandon Lowe, everybody, I definitely want to know your thoughts about him in the comments down below. If you're for or against the Brandon Lowe trade, is it going to take a decent haul to give up what it's going to take to land a guy like Lowe? Yes. But do I think that if you're the Mets, knowing that Lowe is not a rental, knowing that you have multiple years of control, including a club option for next season, is this a guy worthy to do that for? Yes. Outside of Eugenio Suarez, this is the best clear bat the Mets can land here at the deadline, barring changes with any other players' names that maybe haven't been leaked out there, but will be in the coming days. Whatever your thoughts are on Brandon, make sure to relay them in the comments down below, everybody. And thank you guys kindly for doing exactly that. Because not only do we have to talk about Mr. Brandon Lowe, but we also have to get into the Mets being in the market for some really interesting pitching, especially when looking on the relief end. But before we talk more about what the Mets have going there, as well as the latest stats with Mark Vientos, let's also give a quick shout out, as always, guys, to our great sponsors on the platform at BetUS that have you covered for all of your sports betting needs. You guys know the drill by now, but if you don't, let me enlighten you. Head over to betus.com.pa today and utilize our promo code YouTube150. That way you too get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, 125 on your, just 150 on that first deposit, everybody. And what you're getting is not only what you guys see here, which is great lines, props, picks, you name it, daily there regarding the Mets or anything else across Major League Baseball and sports as a whole. And the Mets right now are actually the money line underdog. Even the Mets, who are on a 7-game win streak, are the underdog in Game 1 at Petco Park against the Padres later on tonight. I love those odds. It feels really juicy, and I'm absolutely going to be hammering them biasly. So if I lose, it's okay. It's a bias bet, and I made that choice. But if you guys want to bias bet along with me on the Mets money line at plus 112, which you love to see, or maybe there if you want to get more involved in the casino, just do it responsibly. That's the most important thing, everybody. Head over to betus.com.pa and tell them that Wardy's setting you up by using our promo code YouTube150 to get 150% bonus on that first deposit. Now, as we get right back in this one, let's get into more of the key Mets reporting, because not only do we have Brandon Lowe to break down, which I can't get over the fact that actually came out today, more so because I just was not at all thinking of the Mets being connected to someone like him. I love when I'm blindsided by news that I'm not opposed to, I just wasn't expecting. It's as simple as that. What I was expecting a little bit more of was to hear more on the Mets' connections to relievers. But one reliever that, funny enough, you guys asked me in my live show the past couple days, Wardy, could the Mets find themselves going after Doval from the San Francisco Giants? And I said no, unless the Giants find themselves being more in the seller category. Well, after sweeping the San Francisco Giants, in which they are now just 2 games above 500, and they could be buyers and sellers now at this year's deadline, what do we have to find out? We have the following, guys. This comes courtesy of KNBR there that we see their radio. Andrew Baggerly says he heard from Mets reporter Will Salmon, and because they're good friends, I'm good buddies with Will as well, on the following regarding that the Mets actually made a push already for Doval. My Mets counterpart is plugged in beat writers and Mr. Will Salmon. Will said, I can tell you the Mets. Okay, now we're talking, everybody. Now we're talking another quality reliever. I think we get the gist by now. The Mets want a high leverage arm as a true setup option for Edwin Diaz and an arm that could potentially be a closer for them outside of Edwin heading into the 2026 season should they bring that pitcher back. And as you guys can see, Doval's nasty. Even though the K per 9 to the K to walk ratio isn't nearly as good as what we saw from the previous couple years, he still has been a flamethrower machine and a guy that added into this Mets bullpen, added there into this lab, I think would do nothing short of great things. Doval, guys, what you guys see right there is as follows, and this is an arm that I really think could be another difference maker. When you think of high leverage potential guys with nasty stuff, we know Edwin's nasty. Doval is certainly nasty in his own right that you guys can see right there. I mean, just absolute gas. 45 games, 44 plus innings, a 3.2 ERA, a 3.7 expected ERA, a 3.4 FIP, a sub 4 SI ERA, a $4.5 million is what he's making so far this year in that 1-year contract, but he's not a free agent until 2028. Very appealing to a Mets team right now that not only wants to add another high leverage arm for their bullpen to set up Diaz, but also potentially as a Diaz replacement. And I don't say that saying that, be concerned, Edwin Diaz is going to leave the Mets. I'm saying that for the sense that the Mets are being cautious, knowing that Diaz can opt out of his contract at the end of the season. And if you're Diaz, why wouldn't you with the year that you're having now at this rate, right? Even with how much money that you're making, unless he really just wants to stay in Queens on that deal, he's probably going to want another bag. And if that is the case for Edwin, there isn't a guarantee that the Mets will bring him back, because who signed Edwin Diaz to that $100 million contract? It was Billy Epler, not David Stearns. And David Stearns, who we all have learned the hard way, is far more inclined to obviously build a bullpen based on a lot of question marks to have it stick and see what works, essentially, to a certain degree, then commit heavy dollars long-term into reliever options. So with the question mark that is Edwin Diaz's 2026 tenure, if it'll be with the Mets or not, that's further reason for the Mets to want to add, in this case, a flamethrower and right-hander, the same way that they're in the market for Ryan Helsley is the same way that they're in the market for Doval here. Now, what's interesting about Doval is that because with the Giants at only 2 games above 500 at the time of this video coming out right now, there's absolutely a world where the Giants could trade a guy like Doval while also still being buyers of this year's deadline. Doval, one missing piece does mean that they can still try to contend. However, by trading Doval to a more clear contender in the Mets, it's kind of counterintuitive if you're the Giants, if you're really trying to win now this year. Not sure exactly how the Giants plan to win now, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that front. But Doval has all the tools that you're looking for. Absolute flamethrower. He's tremendous. Has played, look, 102, just disgusting. You're getting a man that's sitting 98 to 100 plus on the gun without a problem. You're getting the off-speed pitches there, just ridiculous there, 90 plus miles per hour. And when we look not only at the highlights beside me, Mr. Doval, let's also get into his savant numbers. And we're going to go away from one Brandon Lowe, and this time get into what Camilo Doval could potentially bring to this Metropolitan bullpen. Because Doval, everybody, he is looking as follows this season. Interesting. Okay, decent mix of good and, around league average. So only thing to complain about, actually, when I look at Doval's numbers, is just that walk rate. He's walking everybody and their mother, doing his best Gregory Soto impression, right? Outside of Soto's dominant first outing as a Met. But he's in the 75th percentile in pitching run value. He's in the 53rd in fastball run value. He's in the 86th in breaking run value, 57th in expected ERA, 68th in expected batting average. He is right around 68th in fastball velocity because he's sitting 95, but we know that he can touch higher on the gun there because his cutter sits 98, the sinker sits 95, but he can rear back and find himself in the triple-digit category like the highlights you guys just saw beside me. The average exit velocity is in the 70th percentile, which is very good to see. Chase percentage is just above league average in the 53rd percentile, 67th in whip percentage, and 66th in K percentage, so well above league average there. Walk percentage, 3rd percentile, not good. 79th in barrel percentage, right around league average in hard hit percentage, and 86th in ground ball rate. So lots of like there in Doval, who has the slider, the cutter, and the sinker. All pitches that we know would bode well in this Mets bullpen. And that paired with a guy like Edwin Diaz, I think would do nothing short of absolutely nasty things. Now, what do you have to give to get in someone in Doval, who still has multiple years left to control on his contract? He's going to be more expensive than Gregory Soto. So if you're the Giants, especially if you're the Giants, again, this would only make more sense in my opinion if you're trying to do something that can kind of help the Giants to a degree now as well as maybe next season. And that is why I wouldn't be shocked at the Giants for saying, hey, give us Luis Angel Acuna. Give us someone that could potentially blossom here as the corresponding move. And outside of Acuna, I don't really think there's any other Mets infielder I would be like very happy to part with. And a case of a trade for Doval, especially while there are some other arms out there that I think the Mets can get similar quality out of, if not better, for what they'd have to give up. So asset-wise, it's a question mark as to what the Mets would have to give up here. Again, a guy like Acuna, I could definitely see getting traded for a reliever from now up until the deadline. I'm kind of expecting to happen, if I'm being honest. So if it doesn't, I'll be a little bit pleasantly surprised, depending on, the status of what the Mets did versus didn't do at this deadline. But outside that, obviously, a lot of teams love the abundance of options the Mets have in their very deep farm right now. And that is an area that the Giants could find themselves dipping into if they really just want to get rid of Doval and try to maximize his return. So Mets fans, is it a guarantee that Doval is going to happen? No, but Doval is now added to the mix on what is an abundance of relievers that the Mets have been connected to and have had varying levels of interest in trade-wise leading up to this year's deadline. You guys let me know if you're for or against Camilo Doval, the flamethrowing right-hander, as a potential bullpen fit for this Mets team. As we know, the Mets would have loved to have him heading into Petco Park there, coming out of that Giants series, leaving San Fran and a New York Mets uniform. Maybe the Mets will finish this West Coast trip by bringing Mr. Doval back to Flushing, Queens along with them, but we're just going to have to wait and see on that front. Now, folks, last but not least, let's get into our final topic today, because our final topic has everything to do with, yet again, and Mr. Mark Vientos. Now, no one should be surprised that we have the Mark Vientos discourse right now. But let's reiterate what is happening there with Mark. And this came initially earlier of Andy Martino of SNY. So let's get into exactly what this reporting had to state. Because what Andy said is more of what we knew, what we expected. But I just want to reaffirm this, everybody. The Mets have been discussing Mark Vientos in trade talks this week, and rival executives believe that the team is willing to move on from him and even potentially move on from him more likely than a Brett Baty, than a Ronnie Mauricio, and a Luis Angel Acuna. So why would the Mets trade Mark Vientos, everybody? Why would the Mets give up so soon on the man who'd hit 27 home runs and pretty much his rookie campaign a year ago? Well, it's everything that we talked about endlessly on the platform this year in regards to Mark. But in case you guys haven't been paying attention, let me remind you the following. Vientos has 0 options left to head to the minor leagues. Having no options is a problem. And speaking of options, everybody, I actually meant to say that sooner here, going back to Mr. Brandon Lowe for a second. Let me go back here just for 1 second, because I do not want to miss this. And I didn't know that I want to mention that earlier for you guys. Brandon Lowe there, contract, the club option. Okay, I told you guys that already, so I don't need to say anything else. Now, back into Vientos, he has no minor league options, so that is bugaboo number 1 for a guy that's been as inconsistent as he's been. Number 2, Vientos is a one-dimensional player. What do I mean by that? Vientos is not a guy that the Mets feel comfortable throwing in the hot corner consistently. Otherwise, Brett Baty will not be there as much as he is, or Ronnie Mauricio, including his tremendous game from this past night at the time of this video dropping. Then you add in the fact that with the abundance of infield options the Mets have, and with more blossoming, and the Jet Williams, the Jacob Reimers, etc. of the world, the Mets are in an increased position to trade away from an area of strength right now to help an area that's currently weak. And Vientos, unfortunately, has been the perfect storm for anything and everything to go wrong for him, and is likely to stay with the Mets. Is it a guarantee Mark is going to be traded? No, of course not. But at this point, no one would be surprised if Vientos is not a Met post-trade deadline July 31st. And the reason for that is it was not only what I just relayed, but the matter of fact that Vientos still has value. There are teams, contending teams now, or even teams that are planning contending in the future, that liked and see the value of Mark Vientos, who still has 4 years left of control on his contract. Obviously, he's making slim pickings right now, and is a guy that can come in and potentially impact a team right away. Like Mark Vientos, when he's hot and right, he's a difference maker. This is a man that can come in and single-handedly win you ball games. The way that we've been dying to see him do for the Mets this year, but unfortunately it's been so few and far in between because of his inconsistencies with his defense not being and playing every single day, and having a lot more pressure on his shoulders now, because last year, after Beatty failed, it was Mark's job to lose, and he thrived. Ronnie Mauricio was out all year, and Luis Angel Acuna didn't get a taste of the bigs until down the stretch before the season ended when Lindor went down with injury. So there was important context as to why Vientos was given the way to run the way they did at third base, and he made the most of it offensively, and that is what kept him there every single day in the lab. Fast forward a year later, the Mets have Ronnie Mauricio doing what Ronnie Mauricio is doing right now. He's really heating up. Brett Beatty's defense has been so supreme that even if his bat is around average at best, the Mets are content with that because they know how much value he brings on the defensive side of the ball. Luis Angel Acuna, what does he provide? He brings more value than Vientos outside of the bat because he actually knows how to, one, base run, and two, he's another very good infield defender. All these players outside of Vientos have the commonality of being multi-tool pieces for the club. The one player who's one-dimensional here, who sticks out like a sore thumb, is Mark Vientos. So let me reiterate, do I want Vientos to be traded? No. I don't know how many times I need to say this. A lot of people think that just because I talk about what's happening with the team and what's been rumbling means that I want that to be the case. That's not always true at all. A lot of times I talk to you guys and say, hey, this report has come out. I don't love it, but we're going to break down what it is. That's kind of how I feel with Mark, because even though Vientos has been as underwhelming as he's been this season, he's been hot post-All-Star break coming back from injury. We like that, obviously. But what is also true with Vientos is that there's still so much to give with someone like him. And the idea of parting ways with Mark when his value is at its lowest versus what it was last year is frustrating, but at the same time, there's a world where Mark Vientos is DFA'd by the Mets in the next calendar year or so if he doesn't play consistent, because you only have so much opportunity for a player that you do not want to logjam in a defensive position that he does not play well, nor do you want to logjam at the DH position if Buddy can't go out there and hit the way that you need more production from at the DH spot. Who's taking Brandon Lowe at DH over Mark Vientos every day of the week right now? It's every Mets fan and their mother. If you said no, that's more because of your bias going back to last season and now focused on being in a win-now stage and what Lowe can bring to this team immediately. Then you add in the fact, everybody, that if Mark Vientos is a difference maker and adding to an area of need, or say the Mets could land a Luis Robert and maybe a reliever and maybe other assets from the White Sox, you would be silly at least not to consider that if you're the Mets right now. They want to add in these areas of weakness, and if you not only add potentially to the outfield, but also Brandon Lowe to second base / DH, the Mets are as deep as they come offensively, just like that, everybody. Then you have Jeff McNeil, who can be utilized in various ways from second base to center field, as well as, maybe the corner if you really wanted to. Then you look at what you have there in your infield configuration. It's Ronnie and it's Beatty as your go-to guys. They're more in the hot corner. And then obviously there will be some one-offs, or maybe they'll come in at second base depending on matchup, stuff like that. But there's so much opportunity to be had with this Mets lab. And what has been the Mets' biggest bugaboo all year long, outside their injuries and their inconsistencies of their rotation, and has been their lack of situational hitting with runners in scoring position. It has been their lack of consistency from their 5 through 9, because the Mets entered this past night's game with the 23rd ranked offense in baseball in 5 through 9 in their lineup. 1 through 4, they're third best in baseball. We know how nails they are. From Soto to Lindor to Alonso and Nimmo. That is your fearsome foursome, or the Fab Four, as Steve Cohen, Mets owner, loves to call them. But outside that, the Mets have weaknesses. And now is the time to add and certainly upgrade that area. Eliminate those weaknesses before you then go on your deep postseason run this season that we hope is inevitably going to find itself happening. So Mets fans, let me know your thoughts on not only the Mets shopping Mark Vientos, but how it appears that there's a greater likelihood of Mark being traded than any other infield option potentially. From Vientos to talking about Doval to Lowe, I want to hear all your thoughts in the comments down below on if you're for or against these potential moves that can happen. What are your expectations leading up to the MLB trade deadline? And be on the lookout, everybody, as we'll have more content dropping later on tonight for Lay's post-game show, as well as a lot more content leading up to the deadline. And the day of the deadline itself, everybody, we're going to be live for 2 live streams at minimum, if not 3 on the platform that day. We will have a live show beginning early in the day for multiple hours throughout the deadline. Then I will be away for an hour and a half, tops 2 hours, because I'll be live, and I'll tell you guys to check me out in the Bleacher Report app, because I'll be doing MLB-wide coverage for them there with a host. We're going to be the 2 hosts for it. We're going to have a lot of fun for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then the final hour or so of the deadline, whatever the Mets did or didn't do, we're going to be hot back live to talk more about it. So you guys are not going to miss Wardy at all when it comes to him covering everything regarding what the Mets do trade-wise. So be on the lookout for it all, everybody. Thank you so much for hitting that like and subscribe on your way out. And let's go Mets, baby. Peace out, folks.